then go out to bid and find you needed 300,000. So they went out to bid for these services, and they went to Coleman and Page, that was the town council at the time, and they had to put wording in there that there was no money available for this work.
It was pending funding.
And on the other side of that is you can't spend more than you appropriate. If the town only appropriates $200,000, they can't go out and spend $500,000.
I think, I'm not saying that. They have to vote on the 500,000. They have to pass on town meeting floor, and they have to have a debt exclusion for that at the ballot. However, because MSBA reimburses it, they wouldn't, the whole 500 would not inflate your tax rate. It would only be, your tax rate would be affected by the portion which is Templeton's responsibility.
Don't you have to spend the money first and then submit the bills to MSBA to get the reimbursement?
No, I don't, well, you do spend the money, but you're never going, you're gonna get that reimbursement back. So you're not gonna spend 500,000 or even 200,000. You're gonna spend money, so that money is constantly being reimbursed.
Wilfred?
I would check with Luann and the Board of Assessors, because it seems to me that if you vote at town meeting for $500,000, then the town clerk will have to certify the results, certify copy of the town meeting, $500,000.
Right.
And I don't know how you would get your tax rate when you go to the Department of Revenue. It would be having to show $500,000.
Did you actually borrow the money though?
Huh?
It's when you borrow the money. I think you should, I mean, by all means, get another opinion. I asked the question because I wanted to know, and that was the answer I was
I
given
think
today.
Luann would be a very good person to talk to.
Diane?
I think you would vote to expend the 500,000 and then vote to borrow 200,000 with the anticipation of being reimbursed 300,000.
Don't think it works that way.
But that, I'm just telling you what, when I investigated, what I was told was along those lines. It's something you'd have to look into, but you would not have to.
And my other thing was, originally, the $550,000 that was voted at town meeting was for feasibility and schematic design. It was supposed to cover both.
The game changed. I mean, I can't go back, I can't undo what's happened, I can't create no wetlands in your town. The committee's charged with trying to move the project forward. In our best faith, we think that this is the time to go and ask for the money, to say, to be honest with people that it's going to cost more, and to find out, and that's why I put it on town meeting and a ballot, and find out what the taxpayers and the town people want to do. But to just know that we're going to need to raise more money and never bring it forward and go to feasibility and then in the fall ask for the money doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I think that, you know, the committee's trying to be responsible by getting the new contract signed, by following and keeping MSBA in the loop and following the things they've said, to work with Senator Brewer to get the land passed. I think the committee's done a lot of work, and at this point, this is their recommendation. And if you want me to explain how these other meetings would take place, I could do that so that it makes sense, because this saying March 29th and April 15th doesn't make a whole lot of sense without an explanation.
And who explained this vote of $500,000 debt exclusion, but you're only gonna have to increase their tax rate on $200,000?
Department of Ed. I've talked to the Department of Ed on a couple of occasions. I think that we can go get I don't know who you'd like me to go to.
I'm-
I can get my Lori Lombardi, who does a lot of our financing, or you can check with your finance people to get the answer to that, but that's the answer I have this evening for you.
I'm gonna go with Mr. Dennis's suggestion and have the assessor, the deputy assessor, because she can go through the division of local services and ask a lot of questions, do the attorney of the day, whomever, and we don't have to spend money on town council. And she can get that answer for us. That just,
And it's probably an important answer to have so that people can make an informed vote, but I think the committee would still like to see that that an article be put on town meeting floor and if it passes on town meeting floor at a ballot, so that we can move forward with the school.
we have a regular election scheduled, I believe it's May 6th.
May 6th.
And the ballot question can go on then, and the town meeting is
So
the 17th of May.
So we are putting together, and we would be able to pay for it, because we have an opportunity of getting a biomass heating system into the school for next winter, which will save substantial amount of money for the district and in turn for the town. And as part of that, we have grants, and grant money, we have the money to pay for both Phillipston and Templeton to have a special town meeting to take up the request for funding biomass boiler heating. We would fund it at no cost to the town. It would just be us we need kind of the approval of both towns to actually go out and borrow, but there would be no financial implications at all to the town for this borrowing, because the money that we would need to roughly $2 million, we would be able to save in energy costs in oil, and we actually would have a little money left over, so therefore there would be no cost to the town, which there's a sample here of a 25-year page F-back projection for this. And the reason that there's a little bit of need to do this is that if we don't get this passed sooner, we're not going to be able to go out to bid, and we're not going to be able to get it built in the summer months that we need.
So instead of having a ballot election on May 6th, which is 3 weeks after April 15th, that totally skews out this. Is that what you're saying?
Right.
So 3-week difference.
Right.
Okay.
We have enough.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
we do have an agenda item to discuss a special town meeting. And while I don't think that these dates are going to work particularly well for the town, we may be able to work something out, not necessarily for a ballot election on April 15th, but probably to combine it with the ballot on May 6th. But to have...
The request, and I respect that, and I know that the town is struggling financially for that.
Right.
And that's why the district is willing to pay the full costs of those meetings, so that there's no expense to the town. And we have a WUFDA grant that we're allowed to use for this purpose. And so that's why we're proposing this, because it's not going to be an easy task to get this biomass and propane system into the school. And the sooner we start in May or June, we have the potential of being able to heat it for next winter. The timeline's so tight that if we don't get this done sooner than later, we will have to wait another whole year before we could actually put the boiler in.
Yes.
And just in case anyone didn't hear, the grant is from the USDA. It's a WBUG grant. It would be the first entity east of the Mississippi, right, to ever be granted one of these. And that is what would cover the cost of the, as well as part of the biomass, obviously, but there would be enough money there to also cover these elections and special town meetings.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
How did the town of Athol, they have a wood burning plant there, what's their projections, how much are they saving? Athol has wood burning. They've had it for 10 years, how much are they saving?
I'm not Athol, I don't know.
Well, that's just an example of how much they're saving. Now, wood chips ain't free, you've got to turn them all the time, you've got to pile them, you've got to stockpile them. You don't just get them and dump them on the ground, they've got to be turned so they don't mold, they burn right, you've got room to do it, cover.
Yes.
Last year, the district spent, what, $400,000 on oil, roughly?
Something like that.
About $400,000 in oil. Other schools that have, of the similar size, that have made the transition to this, in their first year, even after paying the loan, saved, was it $90,000?
Some of, yeah,
Yeah.
this is conservative what I gave you.
Right. So the money to pay the loan comes from not, so even, yes, obviously wood chips are not free, they may cost $250,000. Right now, we're spending $400,000.
What about the windmill, electrical power? They get rent from
All
us.
right, please go through the chair. Yes, John?
The wood system in Athol is totally different than the system that's going to go in here. And Mr. Sand is much more knowledgeable on that than I am, but you really can't compare the two.
Yes.
At the special town meetings, would they be voting on the biomass, or is that already a done deal?
No, I would want you to vote on the biomass. I was hoping to explain that because I think just people are having these kind of questions.
Right. That's what I think, personally, which we're not discussing now, scheduling a special town meeting, that is part of your request to us. I would be more inclined to do the special town meeting end of March, beginning of April, and then do the ballot election with the May 6th.
We're just delaying it.
Yes,
You
Pete?
know, they had 2 boilers in that school, instead of 1 when they designed it, it'd been a lot cheaper, but they didn't do it. And they could put oil furnaces in there now, to run just as cheap as the wood. I've talked to 5 different contractors can do it. They didn't filter the school, but they don't filter the school. They put burners in there, didn't they? They didn't put wood chips.
Okay.
Oh, don't worry about it. Oh, you're gonna let them sand. Go on. You don't live in town to pay taxes, let them live in town to pay taxes. They're both
All right.
there.
Kirk?
I just want to go back real quick to the $500,000 for the design services. Just keep in mind, that's worst case scenario, because a lot of the work that's been done in the last, since the signing of the current contract with the OPM has been to negotiate with MSBA on, of course, cutting the scope down. At the same token, we've been, as you know, really pushing hard towards a model school, which will save the town thousands, if not millions of dollars through the, if it ever went to fruition and actually got constructed. So that $500,000 that Ruth is speaking of is worst case scenario. That's being that the feasibility study is complete. MSBA has reviewed it in its entirety and said, no, you do not pass, you don't make the cut for any type of model school whatsoever. That'd be basically, you're out on the street, you're designing from ground zero. So that $500,000 is for that. That's from a ground zero perspective. That's not a model school program. But if we get the model school, of course, would have to be adjusted to meet the site and the topography of our proposed site. However, a model school is just that. It's, for people in the audience who don't know, it's a school that's already been built, the blueprints are readily available. We would have to, adjust topography plans, foundation, parking structures, stuff like that. But the basis of the internal guts of a school or any big building like that, we start talking electrical plans and plumbing plans and heating, that's the big money. That's the big money. And so that $500,000 is a worst case scenario for a total school design. just want to throw that at you.
But the first 550,000 was supposed to cover all of
Yeah, I know.
the feasibility study.
I'm not gonna make excuses for something that the town voted on 10 years ago. Just that right now, we're at a point where the townspeople, and only the townspeople are gonna say whether this thing goes forward or not. So now's the time to either move it forward or throw it away again. I mean, it's up to the townspeople. Simple as that.
Right.
If they don't support part 2 of this, then they're not gonna support building the school. Without the next phase, you're not going to the build phase. It's as simple as that. It's not rocket science. It's just, you either have support or you don't.
I'm just saying, they were told,
No,
I don't care if it was 10 years ago.
I know,
or
because I was one of the
2
ones in the audience that
years
raised
ago.
my hand too, you know, and it was probably 10 years ago, right? I went by so fast.
It was supposed to be built by 2011.
Right.
Well, it started in like '09.
I had a lot of hair in the black, because that's what mine is. Not everyone's as natural as her.
So I guess, so I guess what the school's kind of trying to ask for is, we have 2 projects we think are really viable projects, and we'd like to have you hopefully make a motion tonight to move forward with the special town meetings on the dates projected as they work, or close to, as we work with your clerk, and put this forward in front of the people in March so that we can move forward.
Well, we have a discussion coming up for a special town meeting, whether we're actually going to have one or not, for the budget shortfall that was going to be held on the 8th and then was canceled. So, let's see, we have 28 days from today. Thank you. That would be the soonest.
Yeah, I don't know. This time frame.
Saturday, I think, 29th.
Right.
Yeah.
That's why. Right. I think in order for this to work for both the town and the school, that's why I'm suggesting pushing it off to the beginning of April to have the special town meetings and to have the election, the ballot election with the regular election on May 6th, so that the whole town can participate in this decision.
And we do have information coming about our budget and stuff. Yes.
The school is offering to pay for this out of the grant on the assumption and the basis that we're going to be able to move the project forward. If we're not going to be able to move the project forward because you're insisting on your own schedule, then the school shouldn't pay. Can the school even use the grant money? I mean, if what we are going to do is going to mean that we cannot follow the schedule that the USDA has set out for us, because we're going to wait until the middle of May to hold this, then we shouldn't be using the USDA grant money to pay so that the town can have an election
Right, because
the
we
way that
might-
it wants, right?
We may have to put the whole project off to the following winter. That was why this schedule.
I'm unclear, this came from the USDA?
No, it
This
came from
schedule?
me, but the
Okay.
USDA grant
All right.
money.
Just curious.
But it's coming from a timeline from our OPM that's working really, really hard to get this in for this summer so that we can use this heat for the following winter. That's the timeline. So that's why the timeline was set as such, and that's why we can use the grant money to pay for it.
Yes.
I think the compromise would be important here. I mean, if the school is willing to pay for the election, I think that we should at least kind of have it on their timeline. Because what we're basically doing is going to piggyback the town stuff onto here, which is fine, but I think because the school's gonna pay for it, I think that we shouldn't say, okay, we're gonna take your money and we're gonna tell you when we're gonna hold it.
I don't think anyone made a motion to take the school's money
And
to do this.
so where would we, so we're just gonna pay for it from,
Well, I don't know, that's what we're discussing.
I'm confused.
You want, yes, something?
no, that's fine.
Oh, so we're not, okay, so if you had a special town meeting on March 26th for this and for our stuff, is that what you're saying, or you wanted this to be completely separate?
I don't.
You're just asking us to-
I didn't come here tonight to talk about anything to do with the town. I didn't know what I came on behalf of the elementary school building committee,
This is what they're asking
which
for.
they had asked for this, and then also the facility subcommittee that you have representation on with regard to the biomass. And as Mr. Sandin just reminded me, that the biomass is really all contingent upon us buying, you buy the boiler first. And it's a strange process, but because of that, we need to go out to bid earlier. And the timing of this, I'm going by what the OPM has told me for timing necessity to try to get it in so that we can have it for next winter and cut back on those oil bills.
So in other words, it doesn't matter what we do, this is the timeline that they're asking for their stuff.
So the OPM came up with the timeline?
The OPM, yes, actually, the facility subcommittee has worked on a timeline. And obviously, like any construction projects, it's a little fluid, but it's going to be very tight to get this in.
So just be not having anything to do with us. So why can't they have it? If they're gonna-
3 weeks doesn't
Why
seem
can't we
like a
have
lot
it?
of
They're
time.
gonna
I
pay
can
for it.
imagine that it would jeopardize the project, 3 weeks.
To just go up to the town. It doesn't even matter what we're doing, right? Is that right? So,
We have a different agenda item to discuss.
With,
But the thing is, if we have, you say you want to separate it, but if we had set a special town meeting, then there has to be a warrant open for that, and there's no stopping.
I didn't say it, I didn't
No,
say it.
I'm just-
I just want it
saying.
earlier in March so that
Right.
we can go out to bid and we can keep our
Right.
progress
But I
moving.
mean, there's no guarantee that there would only be, one item on there. And that it wouldn't necessarily come from the Board of Selectmen, I mean, and
I don't
once you
have a
open the
problem with that.
warrant.
I just want these two
Where's the ash
articles
gonna go?
on that.
But once you, like I said, once we open the
I
warrant.
get it.
it's just everything.
I get
Yes.
that.
I wasn't saying that
That's
it,
hazardous.
Excuse me. If you want to talk, please go out in the hallway.
papers are available at the town clerk. My argument wasn't that we shouldn't put the town stuff on, I'm just saying that if we're going to use the meeting they're paying for to piggyback our stuff onto, we shouldn't then dictate to them when they're gonna have their meeting. That's all I'm saying, it's
Right.
fine. We understand there could be 50 citizens petitions on there could be a bunch of stuff, but we shouldn't then tell them if they're gonna pay for it. That was my only point.
right, okay, right.
No, I just wanted to be clear that, we just can't open up the warrant for a special town meeting, and it would only be,
I'm sure she's aware.
there's 2 articles.
That was never an issue.
Way to go around it.
Jeffrey?
Yeah, but I'd be,
I was asking.
Jeffrey?
I mean, I'd just be a little concerned if we have one on March 29th for the school, and then we have to have another special town meeting, like 2 weeks later for the town. Are the people gonna really attend both? Are we gonna get, more disgruntled residents? That's my only concern. Having them real close together like that is, what's that gonna do to our participation?
Jeffrey?
Someone, hey, chief. Is that you? Oh, okay. Is it,
That is out in the hall.
what's tonight? Thanks for asking. Well, you guys with these newfangled dangle things, I don't know where you get them. Yes, Pete?
The town of Phillipston has to vote on this now, too?
Yes.
Yes, because it's a district thing.
Get your axes out, stop jumping.
agree with Doug that I believe that we should coordinate. We're gonna end up with 3 town meetings if we do this. You know, one in March, one in April, and another in May. And I just don't think that's a good way to proceed.
Disagree.
Yes, Brian?
Mr. Bennett, the May town meetings have gone 4 nights many times till somebody asked to adjourn at 10:30. So having more town meetings to explain an issue, to educate the people
Yeah.
beforehand, may be the way to go.
Same amount as now.
4 nights at a town meeting, and then we add another educated item to it. Let's deal with them.
Yeah, we had, I don't know, what, 4 or more special town meetings.
And now add,
Why do we have 4 more special town meetings?
We have no budget.
So it would be March 29th. Would that be the 28th day?
It meets the time
That
frame.
week of March 24th.
It meets the time frame.
So it would be one of those days between the 24th and the 29th. And that's what starts tomorrow.
If we open it tonight.
If we open it tonight, it would be,
You know, I'm,
28 days would be the 24th, I think. It would be one of those days in that week, that last week of March.
you know, this came up under the elementary school, not under setting a special town meeting. And according to our policies, I believe we should wait and talk about it at our next meeting. You know, this,
Yes.
No, this is the problem. This did not come up under. They are 2 separate issues. This one, it says under Templeton Elementary School Building Project, which is on the agenda, that we voted to ask the town to have a ballot election on April 15 for the debt exclusion article. So we are again putting our special town meeting in with what the school has requested. The school here, when it comes to at least the ballot, which is the part that is under contention from what I'm hearing, is on there. They are requesting that the ballot election be held on April 15th for purposes of the Templeton Elementary School Building Project, which is the item on the agenda that we are currently discussing. So I don't see how this is a violation of our policies and procedures to be discussing
well,
the ballot election on April 15th when that's what's on the agenda item and what we have in our hand.
but I believe they also want the boiler project
That's right.
on the
Once
ballot as
once
well.
once the agenda is open, as you're aware, anyone can put anything forward. So we don't need to vote to have the boiler be on there.
Well, I believe
At
our
this time,
policies say something else.
What, we can limit it and say only certain things are allowed to be on an open warrant?
Well, I thought we agreed to postpone discussion on the biomass project.
That's what I'm saying, we don't have to discuss them. If we open a warrant for April 15th, we don't determine what the articles are now.
No, all we do is just open.
Right, all we would be
Opening
doing would
and
be
say
opening.
closing day, which would be
Correct, so there's
14
no
days
discussion
from-
would have to be
It'd be
involved
14 days from tomorrow.
of what the actual individual articles are, right?
It would have to be,
Pay your taxes.
So,
But they're asking for a special town meeting also.
Right, that part of it, but that part we're not discussing right now. That
Right,
part isn't
which
in.
that can come after.
Right,
Okay, fine.
one.
one thing at a
You
time,
can-
yeah.
Okay. Okay. So there's plenty of time for the town election, right?
Right, we don't decide what-
Right.
Right.
we decide the articles that go on the town meeting, but we don't decide on the ones that are submitted. So if we set a special town meeting date or a regular town meeting, then the warrant opens, and then any articles that anybody wants to submit within a certain time frame, they can submit.
Okay.
So we don't vote on, we'll put this on.
Mhm.
It's we would just vote to open
Right now, they're asking for
the
that
warrant
date.
for a special town
Right.
meeting.
Right now,
and
they're
then-
only asking for April 15th.
And then tomorrow, you could submit
No,
two
September,
articles.
The March 29th special town meeting.
But you can
Right.
ask for that in the next discussion item. Don't ask
Okay,
for that
sorry.
right now.
Thank you.
So now that's where I was
Okay, I got
confused.
it.
Do you understand? So
Yep.
delay that rest of that discussion. So you're right now asking to have a town ballot election on April 15th, of which the school would pay for.
Correct.
And that's what we should be talking about only. So will we have a town ballot election in Templeton on April 15th and put a minimum, I guess, of the debt exclusion on there? Do we need to have a motion for that?
They want to have,
If so, I'll make a motion.
we really need to check with the town clerk.
And the moderator and
For the-
town council.
Well, for the ballot,
Okay, well, that's February, March, April.
timeframe, board registers will be available, all of that,
Checked it.
all of that
You
stuff.
already did?
We called, the both town clerks got the timeline, got their input.
When you did
I
all
mean, we
this?
need to go back and give them more. I think that my secretary's been working with them today as well.
Go ahead.
Yes.
Do we know if we would have another week? Because if we do,
If we have what now?
if we had, or, because there's our regularly scheduled meeting next week.
Actually, regular, if you follow,
Oh,
we could have one on the 3rd, March 3rd.
Would that give us enough time to have an April 5th or no?
I believe there's a sewer rate hearing scheduled at 7. For this one.
Actually, yeah, we'd have to check the availability of this room. Do you know the availability of this room, Kate, on March 3rd?
We can go to the Kiva. Monday night?
Yeah.
Yes.
Why can't we go to the Kiva if there's another meeting here
This room is
Yeah.
booked.
on Monday?
So I can't change it.
We can go to the Kiva.
Is that
We
open?
could get a room at the high school, not to keep, it's like, I don't know if it's open, I think it probably is. If not, we could get the auditorium or something open.
Yeah, we have had selectmen's meetings at the auditorium. It's not fun, because it's kind of dark and sound.
My only thinking would be, because then that could satisfy everyone if we were not concerned about the date for the election at this point. If we do have the time to put it off 1 week, we can have a separate agenda item, so then everyone is happy, and we can have both to discuss the elementary school project on that ballot, and then also the biomass, adding that to the ballot. If we have the time to, for us to wait 1 more week, then everyone, I think that would be a good,
Well, you know me, the more meetings.
the better.
The biomass has to be on a ballot?
No, the biomass has to be a special town meeting.
Yeah, they don't even need a ballot. so we
Oh, it
don't-
was up here for, oh, you don't need the.
No,
Oh.
that's gonna be,
We
no.
found out, no.
Oh,
we
gotcha.
have to
So
get
you just-
So we're only
acceptance
looking
of
at that.
borrowing, it's getting that vote
Yeah, don't look at
involved.
that. She,
And according, I think it's 14 days that it has to be open, and so trying to keep it in that March timeline is
Gotcha.
why you picked the 29th. But I think you're still within that 14 days if you have a meeting next week. You take this out.
Well, we open the warrant for 14 days, but it has to be posted for the warrant, once we open the warrant for 14 days, and anybody who wants to submit an article can submit it, and at the end of the 14th day, then we will meet. We vote, put the articles on, or any citizen's petition, and then the warrant has to be posted for 14 days, which, that's the state law.
So for a special town meeting, so if you do the 3rd, then it's gonna push us into April.
What about the ballot question?
well, the
The
ballot question,
has to come after, because if it doesn't pass on town meeting floor,
Well,
You
you
don't
can
Right,
have
but I
them
mean,
in
do
either,
we
you
have
can
enough
do it in
time?
either order. You can have a ballot question and then have town meeting.
but I think
or
for the
town meeting.
elementary school, we want the ballot second. I think we need to explain
Historically,
why we need the money.
historically, I think the vote to pass at town meeting and then at the ballot, they fail. I'm pretty sure that's accurate. 'Cause nobody's
The last
watching.
one passed, and we've been using the money to do the schematic feasibility study, last building project one.
So, have a meeting on the 3rd, March 3rd? I know you all like this.
No problem.
I'm sorry, I'm completely confused. So, are we talking about special town meeting, or are we talking about having a ballot election?
Ballot.
If we're talking about having a ballot election, like if we wait until the 3rd, then we could still decide on April 15th, but that would blow us out of the water for the other stuff, and you don't need both? You're just asking for a ballot election for the 500,000?
They,
I am lost.
right, because I'm not as concerned about the ballot, because it has to pass town meeting floor,
Okay. So we
okay?
don't
And
have
so
to-
to get
So you
a
need this
special
scanned out.
town meeting, you're saying takes 28 days? I think the town clerk had told me 14,
Well, the warrant has to open for 14 days by town bylaw.
before you can hold a meeting.
Before we can post it.
If we voted tonight to have a special town meeting,
Yep,
the warrant would open tomorrow,
yep,
and you have 14 days to submit citizens petitions or warrant articles. So you could come in and say, we'd like this and this and this on the
Right.
warrant for the special town meeting. Once that 14 days is up, we would meet, we read the articles, and we vote to put them on with that warrant. And that has then, and once we set those articles, then we have to have, then we have, and we agree that's the warrant, and we send it to the constable to be posted. Once it's posted, it has to be posted for people to look at for 14 additional days, and that's by the state law.
right, which is why the proposal was to have you do it tonight and then have the 29th. Because we were hoping that we could get both the biomass and the elementary school on this so that we could move forward with knowing where we were going. So if you have a meeting on the 3rd, then you're looking at, it's going to be in April, which is what you wanted, which may or may not work for us.
But I'm only talking about
But that would work for
Yeah,
me.
for the ballot.
Yeah,
I'm
but
only
she's not
talking-
concerned about it.
Right, so
So
I'm
it's
really
really
concerned about the
separate.
meeting itself.
So we could, like, not have to even say anything about town ballot election right now and just move this item. We can just move this item along, we don't even have to say anything about it, we need to talk about what you need in the discussion on the special town meeting. Okay, we're good. Moving on. I can't say that. Sorry.
Yes?
Just a thought. Your biggest problem seems to be the timeline for all this. Couldn't this been brought here sooner? It's almost like you're here tonight and you're gonna have all this done in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever. Couldn't it have been, could the committee have done this, brought it in here sooner for you to act on?
No, we didn't have the information.
I'm not sure when the last, well, the elementary school building committee stuff, I'm not sure when's the last time they met.
Seems almost like you're being backed into a corner up there.
It
as
does.
selectmen.
It does.
You know, here's the timeline, we're telling you the timeline.
It just feels that way.
It doesn't seem fair. When it's the taxpayers that are gonna pay for this.
The school's gonna pay for
Who's
it.
gonna pay?
Okay.
Our taxpayers
So-
won't pay for it. The
If
school
we
will
need
pay
a
for it.
space,
No, I'm talking about the whole school, the whole school.
they
Well,
can have
okay.
someone
That's different.
call text Sue. Sue Ryan.
Yeah.
In the next, like tomorrow or something, and that does the space. Yeah, if the key was open, that would be cool, but I
I
understand
think
it.
it probably is, it's just it's a phone call, I'll check when I get in the morning.
And we do have an agenda item for a special town meeting, so it may or may not require the 3rd. that all?
I'm good, I'm
Is
good,
that all
thanks.
you?
Sorry to
Okay.
take up so much of your time.
All right, the next item, everybody good?
Yeah, we are good.
Is Council on Aging, they have their bylaws and their mission statement. They're looking to declare a Dodge van surplus and the approval of the outreach volunteer coordinator position that's funded by the CDBG grant. You need to speak on any of this, Bethany?
Well, the board came back and made the adjustments that you were looking for the bylaws. Coming up with the set board number, they chose the lesser of 7. And then saying, taking out the part about spouses serving together. So those changes have been made as you guys requested. The mission statement doesn't necessarily need your action. We just wanted to inform you guys of the new mission statement that the board has come up with. I hope you all have a copy of it. Yes, okay. And then, of course, the Dodge van, we've talked about a lot. Our new vehicle is up and running, especially thanks to the highway department and helping us getting it registered and everything. So we're ready to declare the Dodge surplus. I understand that the sale of the Dodge, money from the sale of the Dodge can't go directly back to the COA. However, I'm hoping that at some point it could be used to reimburse the 600 something that was taken from the formula grant to pay for the van that was not covered by the MARTAP grant, along with the fee for getting the vehicle registered, inspected, and having the vehicle picked up. I don't know if there's a process to do that, but either way, the Dodge is surplus.
Okay.
And then can talk about the new appointment now or wait and just hit one thing at a time. Up to you.
Okay, so you wanted us to,
Well, I guess step 1 is approve the bylaws,
that's
if you guys so choose.
mid-7?
All right, I'll make a motion that we approve the bylaws of the Council on Aging of the Town of Templeton, Mass.
I'll second.
Motion made, seconded, any discussion? Fine, that's pretty big. As long as the spouse thing, that was the biggest thing, I think. All right, hearing none. Julie?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, and the mission statement doesn't take any action. It's just the board is proud of what they've come up with, and they wanted to let you know, and they wanted to let the community know.
All right. And the outreach worker. All right.
The outreach.
And the next is the, getting rid of the old
Out with the old.
reliable van.
Yes, please. I could have brought pictures of its wonderful state, but you've all seen them.
Yes, I'm sorry. Okay. All right, a motion to
Surplus?
surplus.
I make a motion to surplus the Council on Aging Dodge van. Put it out to bid.
Second.
All right, motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Julie?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
And yes. All right, the next item would be action to appoint a candidate for the outreach worker that's funded by 100% from the CDBG grant.
I'd like to make a motion to appoint Cynthia Shea as the outreach volunteer worker that's funded by the CDBG grant.
Second?
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Yes.
For those who don't know me, I'm Penny Farini. I had been employed at the Council on Aging since October of 2008. Of course, goes without saying that I'm extremely emotional about this, and I'll try to be very calm and very succinct. I have been at the DET since Ms. Lovelace had handed me my letter of being laid off less than 12 hours after your meeting of the 27th. And I don't believe that you even had time to do the letter to all the other department heads about the 5% reduction. So I just thought that was interesting that less than 12 hours, she had made the decision to reduce costs to the town of $24,000 and laid me off. I did speak with Ms. Johnson at the DET, and she said that I should have the first refusal for this grant. Granted, it is without benefits, but it still is a job that I love to no end, and I think all my seniors know that. She didn't even offer it to me. I have submitted my resume and my cover letter on
All right,
February 6th.
I think we're crossing the boundary of complaints about individuals that can't be handled.
Okay, but also, how can she appoint somebody, because the bargaining unit, Neil Carniello.
Again, this is,
It's
that's an
arbitration,
outside-
she can't get rid of me, she's supposed to reinstate
it's
me
an
until it's.
outside issue.
I don't understand how this can be totally legal, where she did things illegally that I'm supposed to have my job back. And it hasn't even gone to arbitration, so I don't know how you can appoint another person for that position.
Mr. Chairman, I think we should close discussion and vote on the motion.
Well, it's, like I said, that's out
Okay.
of
All right.
the scope,
I
and
just
it's,
wanted to let you know how I
it's
feel.
a thing that has to be handled through a different venue.
Okay.
And it is being handled in a different venue.
Okay,
So,
thank you for your time.
thank you. Any further? Hearing none. Julie?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
Yes. And that is it.
Chairman?
All right, at our last meeting, we had discussed the budget, and we had talked about holding a special town meeting, and it was decided we canceled it because we did not have a figure of a certified free cash figure, and that was one of the options that had been discussed to present to taxpayers at a special town meeting. So several of the things that were requested was to get, to find out from the accountant where we were in closing books for fiscal year 13. And it requested that either the accountant be here, or we have an email, the treasurer be here, or we have some written input. Mr. Markle, the town administrator, while he wasn't at that meeting, he'd lined up a meeting of the financial team today, the forensic accountant, the town accountant, the tax collector, the treasurer. The meeting was attended by myself and Mr. Markle as well. And the information was gathered and put together that I think satisfies the request and questions of having information as far as where we stand from the accountant and the treasurer, et cetera. And I would let the town administrator give the update of what was determined.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, at the meeting this morning, we addressed a number of financial issues facing the town. Number one, closing the books on fiscal 2013, submitting the information to the Department of Revenue, Division of Local Services, so that the town can get certification of free cash. That process is nearing completion. The town accountant said that he hopes to wrap up by the end of the month, meaning the end of this week. It may take several days in the following week, but he is at the point of concluding the work, which we would then submit and seek to get our free cash certified. Obviously, that's important because while it's not good policy to use free cash for your operating budget, with the town facing $500,000 plus shortfall in the current year, we are limited in our choices. Obviously, an override for fiscal 14 is not in the cards, and we have to use so-called one-time revenue to close this gap. While I think that needs to be explained to the residents of the town very carefully, it is also the case that when you use one-time revenue to close the gap this year, you have the same problem next year. And so a different combination is going to be required to fix, for a permanent fix to the problem in fiscal 2015, starting July 1. So I came away from the meeting this morning feeling confident that we're going to be able to get the certification of free cash that we need, the closing of the books. As soon as that occurs, the accountant is going to move directly into the filing of so-called Schedule A. This is a filing required of all cities and towns. It is due by the 30th of November. We're obviously very late, and I received a message on February 19th from Bob Nunes, the Deputy Commissioner of Revenue for the Commonwealth, who said this was the second letter, pointing out that if we do not submit the required Schedule A, which is just a variety of financial data about the town's fiscal year, that would be last year, then they will withhold state aid beginning on the 31st of March. Also, they've said that they will withhold the March payment if we don't have Schedule A completed by the 14th of the month. So obviously, with the town not in a position to send out tax bills for the current fiscal year, and in a position where we have borrowed funds to operate for the current year, losing state aid would be, would make it very difficult, if not a catastrophic situation. So the effort now on behalf of the financial management of the town is going to be to get this wrapped up, get fiscal 13 wrapped up, get the information to the Department of Revenue, and then to work with them actively to try and get what we need, our free cash certified, and as soon as we get the books closed, to get Schedule A into the state so that this warning doesn't affect our local aid payments from the state. As far as the town meeting is concerned, to close, to address the problem of the shortfall for fiscal 14, we are not going to be able to get a certified tax rate until we provide evidence through the tax recap that our budget is balanced for fiscal 2014, the current year. So obviously, tax revenue is important. We need to get a certified tax rate. In order to get that done, the town is going to have to address the $500,000 plus shortfall. We need to do that through a town meeting and sort of a combination of one-time revenues. And then we can set the tax rate, get the tax bills out, and avoid any further borrowing for the fiscal year. So as far as having a special town meeting, it's hard to say the exact timing for this, but I would have to think that the DOR is not going to, they're not sitting at the edge of their desk waiting for our filing, so that once we submit the data, it's going to take them some time to certify free cash. And after the town meeting, it'll take some time before we get our tax rate. So I would say that towards the end of March, I would think we would be in a position to have the special town meeting. And I think that's allowing a fairly generous amount of time for the Department of Revenue to do their work. As I've been told, relations are not, with the Department of Revenue, are not ideal. But I have to tell you this, that in a discussion that I had last week with the representative in Springfield, which is the office that oversees the finances here, they did offer cooperation, and Deb Wagner offered to come to the town whenever we request, basically to try and be helpful, to look over our situation and provide some assistance to us. Again, I don't think that that would be timely until we close 2013. So I would be calling her back tomorrow and say, can we get you to come here? And even if it doesn't accomplish anything, it's important to keep good relations with them.